JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is one of the most iconic and cult-followed manga and anime series to come out of Japan. One of the most iconic pieces of the series in particular is the colorful array of superpowered spirit creatures that personify the will and personalities of those who possess them. The Stands. From the third installment of the series, Stardust Crusaders, onward, most of the combat in JoJo is based around these unique powers, and they come in as big a variety as their users do. However, it should be fair to say that not all stands are created equal. Welcome back, people of Earth and elsewhere, to the show where the content is spam, and I am Crackers. Today, I'll be giving you what I consider to be the 10 lamest stands and stand powers in Hirohiko Araki's hit manga JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. First of all, there are some basic rules for how I made this list. The stands on this list come from several parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, including those not adapted into the anime yet. You may come across some spoilers on this list. However, as many can point out, JoJo's spoilers are of a special variety, so watching this list shouldn't ruin the experience for you. Secondly, what can be considered lame is different from person to person, and while I may try to keep this list as generalized and objective as possible, there will be those of you who disagree, and that's fine. This is just my list. I'd also like to acknowledge that JoJo is an excellent example of how many powers, no matter how bad they may seem, can still be a force to be reckoned with if in the hands of the right individual. I cannot stress enough how hard a list this was for me to make, and I'll admit that I had to scrounge for a total of 10 entries, so I'd appreciate it if you kept that in mind as you watch. Things I've taken into consideration for a stand to qualify for this particular list include anything from statistics like the power range and speed, usefulness, conditions of use, impact in the series, how it is used, who uses it, and of course, general impressions. Stands only from the core manga and anime, and none of the light novels or spin-offs are on this list. Once again, I'll be drawing various stands I mentioned in this video, and the list counts up from 1 to 10 instead of the typical countdown because they can be kind of hard to rank. Or, you know what? I'll make it really simple and just list them off chronologically from when they appear in the series. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Number 1. The Emperor. It's a gun! It's a pistol or a revolver or whatever model that thing is. Can't say much about it, really. The bullets can be freely manipulated, technically, and there appears to be no recoil, and running out of ammo is never seen as a problem, but it's pretty much just a spirit gun. I guess if someone other than the cowardly Whole Horse was using it to a fuller potential, it might not be as unimpressive, but there's not much going for it, even among the early stands of Part 3. Number 2. The Lock. Interesting concept maybe, but not really that impressive. The power of guilt is a real thing, but the premise of how the lock works is flawed given how easily it can be countered, especially since Tamami is just a con man and once he's found out, it doesn't take much to ignore him and the effects of his stand. Also, it's a big lock. I'm not going to apologize for thinking the design is kind of basic and again comparatively less impressive than everything else in the series. Number 3. Boy to Man. Albeit it takes a good amount of drama and writing to make rock, paper, scissors into a death battle, and a fairly enthralling one, nonetheless, as a condition for how this stand works, it's pretty meh. It's very conditional and takes at least 3 tries to work in full, and at most, it could take forever if you just figure not to play the game, and of course, it's not very foolproof either. But at least the design is cooler than the last 2 stands I mentioned, right? Number 4. Cheap Trick. Just read the name! But in all seriousness, all it can do is stick to a person's back and talk to them. Oh, and of course there's the fact that it can kill you if anybody happens to see your back. Yeah, Cheap Trick presented a puzzling predicament in the series, and I sure as heck wouldn't want to have to deal with it, but I don't think there's any stand from JoJo I'd actually want to be fighting against in the first place. Again, admitting that I was scraping around when I decided that working against the user or the host or victim or whoever happened to be connected to the stand qualified to make it lame. In addition, I would like to say that I put it on here because I find it to be more annoying than anything else when you take into account its actual abilities. Number 5. Rolling Stone. Now this one is really lame. A literal rolling stone that doubles as an omen of death. Its user can do nothing about it. It has no destructive power or development potential, so it can't even be weaponized. I feel bad for its user because this one really scrapes the bottom of the barrel. He's just like a host for this stand to exist, and that really sucks. Hey, this is my pet rock. If he follows you home, you're gonna die. I mean, wouldn't you hate to get a stand that you couldn't even actually use? At least he doesn't have to worry about being damaged every time it breaks. Number 6. Goo Goo Dolls. This one falls into the category of less original and less useful. Goo Goo Dolls has one power, and that is to shrink people, which is not a totally lame or useless power. However, it is neither the first nor the last of its kind in the Arakiverse, while also being the least useful of the currently existing 3. For the sake of arguments, I'm going to compare it to Little Feet from Part 5. Both stands have the power to shrink people. However, Little Feet can have its powers affect its user at his behest, whereas Goo Goo Dolls can't. Moreover, Goo Goo Dolls is heavily range limited, and Little Feet's effects can only be deterred by defeating its user. Whether or not this convinces you, Goo Goo Dolls is here because it is a downgrade from other similar but more powerful stands. Number 7. Manhattan Transfer. Short summary. It looks like a variation of Aerosmith, but it's actually a watered-down version of Sex Pistols, and is less functional than the Emperor. It is small, and uses the abilities to detect movements in the air. The user fires a bullet at it, and it ricochets only once in order to hit a given target. It is also slow as snails in exchange for having high-powered durability, which sounds like a nice trade-off, but any positive sides to the stand are negated by its short and distracting period of appearance in the actual series. Don't believe me? Go read the manga. Number 8. Survivor. How many people even remember this stand? Just looking at the stats on this thing make it the lamest thing ever, and it's been called the weakest stand in the series as of Stone Ocean. Range, E. Strength, E. Speed, E. Destructive power, E. Durability. Oh wait, C. Precision, E. Development potential, E. What does it even do? It makes a weak electrical current that makes people fight each other to the death. You know, probably. If you're in range and haven't already hit it with a stand or accidentally stepped on it with your stand or something. Number 9. Hey Ya. Well, at first glance, you might think that this stand encourages his user to take risks which result in good luck, and that's really handy. Until Araki says, nah, it doesn't work like that. What? As it turns out, Hey Ya does even less than Cheap Trick. It's essentially a personal motivator that floats around and says, see that? Do it. Something bad probably won't happen to you. YOLO! Okay, as much as I could dig having a stand like this, it essentially does nothing, so on the list it goes. And before I go on to my last entry for the lamest stands in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I have a single honorable mention. The Lovers. While it is almost on this list, I thought it was essentially the best example of even the apparent weakest of powers can be terrifying in the hands of the right user, so I decided to leave it be. And finally, number 10, Tusk Act 1. Act 1, Act 1. I said Act 1! Sometimes I find myself calling this the lamest power in all of JoJo, but compared to Survivor or Rolling Stone, I guess I would take Johnny's stand over those. But seriously, all it does is make it so that Johnny Joestar, the protagonist at some point of Steel Ball Run, it just makes it so that he can spin his fingernails and shoot them like bullets. Johnny isn't even that good a shot. And unlike even the Emperor, his ammo is very limited, and he has to wait for his nails to grow back after firing them. It's also really gross and creepy. I kind of cringe whenever I think about that, but it doesn't seem to have a negative effect on Johnny's body, at least. Yeah, I know it gets more powers later into Steel Ball Run, that's why I specified Act 1 4 times. Shooting fingernails is not only gross and strange, but one of the lamest superpowers I have ever heard of, and it absolutely deserves to be on this list. And there you have it, people. Surprisingly, I didn't manage to find a particularly lame stand in Part 8, but maybe you think otherwise. Did I miss something in the series manga or anime that really gives stands a bad name? Or maybe you think some of these powers are more useful or cool than I let on. Like I said, this list wasn't easy to make because there are really few powers in the series that can't be made amazing in the hands of the right person. In any case, please comment below because I'd like to hear what you have to say. Maybe suggest another top 10 video, or consider subscribing to see more future stuff. Or I suggest following SpamCrackers on Twitter to know what I'm up to without the threat of being randomly unfollowed from me. Once again, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who has watched this video all the way through to the end, and I hope to see you guys next time. Ciao!